She was a janitor, dismissed and overlooked for 6 long years until one phone call changed everything, turning her into the woman who would transform an entire system. Naomi Carter padded down the gleaming hallway of the Imperial Crest Hotel, a renowned five-star establishment in New York City, where she had worked in the environmental services team for the past 6 years. Dressed in a plain uniform, carrying a mop and a bucket, she was an essential part of the glittering machine that kept the place running, yet at the same time, she was invisible, someone no one bothered to notice. The old watch on her left wrist ticked to 10:15 a.m., the peak hour. Naomi knew the rules by heart. Stay focused. No phones, no stopping in the main lobby, especially not under the watchful, disapproving eyes of Mrs. Monroe, the housekeeping manager. Mrs. Monroe had always looked down on Naomi, the only woman of color in the department with a college degree, a magna cum laude in linguistics from Georgetown, but no one at the hotel seemed to care. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in the apron pocket. Naomi glanced at the screen. University of Utrecht, Netherlands. Her heart raced. This was the call she'd been waiting for nearly a year from the International Master's Program in Applied Linguistics she had used to multiple times, never receiving a positive response. Naomi slipped out of the lobby without hesitation and tucked herself behind a marble column near the staircase. She pressed answer and whispered, "Hello, Naomi speaking." A voice on the other end responded in crisp Dutch Goedemorgen mevrouw Carter. "Ik ben Professor de Vries van de Universiteit Utrecht." Naomi immediately replied in fluent, confident Dutch. She explained why her motivation letter had been marked late and reaffirmed her commitment to the scholarship program. She was still mid-explanation when she suddenly felt an eerie silence around her. Looking up, she froze. Alexander Pierce, the founder and chairman of the Imperial Hotel Group, stood directly in front of her. Next to him was Mrs. Monroe, her face flushed with rage. Naomi tried to stay calm and quickly ended the call. "Dank u wel, ik bel later terug. Carter. Office." Now Monroe's voice was cold as steel. Naomi lowered her head and followed them toward the basement stairs where the Environmental Services office was located. Her co-workers glanced in her direction, some with pity, others with disdain, but all of them understood something bad was coming. In the office, Monroe slammed the door behind them. "You know the rules. No phones during your shift, and certainly not in the main lobby." And speaking whatever that language was, Dutch, Naomi replied softly. "I don't care if it was alien speak. I care that Mr. Pierce saw you. A janitor standing in the lobby, not working, chatting away in some witchcraft-sounding gibberish." Naomi bit her lip. She knew arguing would only make things worse. "Starting tomorrow, you're assigned to the conference hall restrooms. 3 months, no complaints." Naomi remained silent. She knew that section meant double the work, after hours, with no change in pay. "Get out, and be grateful I didn't fire you." Naomi left the room like a shadow. But the humiliation wasn't the worst part. It was the choking sense of injustice. She had quietly submitted over 40 internal applications for 6 years, trying to transfer to the front desk administration and even the International Guest Services Department. Not one had received a reply. Not one explanation. That evening, in her cramped rented room in the Bronx, Naomi stared at her Georgetown degree hanging on the wall. Below it were her French, Dutch, and Mandarin language certificates, all with top scores. She used to believe that she would be recognized if she worked hard enough. But maybe it would never be enough for a woman of color. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was the hotel's internal line. Naomi Carter. Yes, HR. Requests you come to the 30th floor. Immediately, the 30th floor where the CEO's office was. A floor no janitor had ever been invited to. Naomi gripped the phone tightly. A part of her wanted to refuse, but a stronger part, the one that had survived these 6 years, whispered, "Go." Maybe, just maybe, the real door was finally about to open. Naomi stepped into the elevator, her hands still trembling, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. It felt as if all of New York's spring was left behind when the steel doors closed behind her as the elevator slowly carried her to the top floor, a place she had never imagined herself. When the doors slid open, she was met with a marble-floored lobby bathed in soft lighting, creating a majestic and surreal atmosphere like something out of a simulation. A quiet assistant appeared, gently motioning for her to approach the CEO's office door. Inside, Alexander Pierce, founder and chairman of the Imperial Hotel Group, stood in front of a large window, his gaze cast far over the city. He turned when he heard the knock. Naomi Carter. "Yes, sir," she replied, trying to keep her composure. "Please have a seat." Naomi strolled toward the chair across from his desk. She didn't dare look directly at the man who ran an empire in which she had always been a small invisible part. "Dutch, French, Mandarin, and 3 other languages, correct?" Pierce asked, flipping open a file folder. Naomi nodded, surprised. "HR kept that information in my file. I requested your entire record after hearing the conversation yesterday morning. I wanted to be sure we weren't overlooking someone with real capability in this organization," he said, leaning back in his chair, eyes overseeing her. "You did the right thing, even if others judged you wrongly." Naomi looked even more confused, but kept her voice steady. "Thank you for listening, sir. I never intended to break any rules, but none of my transfer requests over the past 6 years were ever acknowledged." "I know," Pierce nodded, "and that's going to change. Tomorrow, we're hosting 2 corporate delegations, one from the Netherlands and the other from China. I need someone to interpret and help coordinate cultural exchanges. I want that person to be you." Naomi froze. "Me, sir? $5,000 a week. Temporary title: International Relations Coordinator. You'll have access to the full system and oversight of previously overlooked matters." Naomi was speechless. After 6 years of being dismissed, this was the first time someone truly saw her. She nodded, voice tight with emotion. "I'll do my very best." Pierce offered a faint smile. "I believe that, and I think you're about to change more than you realize." And in that moment, Naomi Carter, once invisible in her janitor's uniform, began her journey to become the centerpiece of a quiet revolution waiting to erupt. Naomi Carter left the CEO's office with a new badge pinned to her chest, the words International Relations Coordinator, temporary, gleaming under the hallway lights. To her, it wasn't just a title. It was the first accurate recognition after 6 quiet years of dedication in the shadows of the Environmental Services Department. As she stepped into the elevator to return to HR and complete the paperwork, Naomi happened to run into her former supervisor, Ms. Monroe. The woman stared in shock when she saw Naomi dressed in professional business attire, no longer wearing the familiar gray janitorial uniform. "Naomi, what are you doing on this floor? Out of uniform," Monroe snapped. Naomi stood tall, her gaze steady. "I've just been appointed as International Relations Coordinator by direct order from Mr. Pierce." Monroe's face turned pale, though she forced a strained smile. "You don't meet the qualifications for that position. I hold an honors degree in linguistics from Georgetown. I'm fluent in 6 languages, including Mandarin and Dutch. My file has been in the system for 6 years, along with 12 transfer requests, none of which were ever acknowledged. If needed, I can print them out for you." Monroe opened her mouth to object, but no words came out. Naomi kept walking, leaving behind a gaze full of resentment. At the HR office, she met Elena Brooks, a recruitment officer who had joined 3 months earlier. Elena was one of the few who had ever taken real notice of Naomi's abilities, though every recommendation she made had been blocked by upper management. "I'm so glad you're finally getting the recognition you deserve," Elena said as she signed the paperwork confirming Naomi's new role. "Your file made a strong impression on me the first time I read it." That afternoon, Naomi began reviewing the upcoming International Business Summit materials. She quickly found several Mandarin translations contained serious errors, some even borderline offensive if uncorrected. Naomi meticulously revised each section, applying her deep knowledge of language and Asian corporate culture. She even initiated redesigning parts of the event's introduction to align with the summit's diplomatic goals and the company's image. While immersed in her work, Alexander Pierce unexpectedly appeared at her office doorway. His eyes landed on the drafts Naomi was editing. "How did you know the translation was wrong?" he asked. Naomi looked up. "Some words aren't appropriate in a Chinese business setting, especially regarding professional relationships. Misusing them could come across as disrespectful." The previous translator may have understood vocabulary, but they didn't grasp the cultural nuances. Pierce nodded. "Whitmore assured me he hired the best." "I'm afraid that's not the case," Naomi said, pointing to a critical error in a draft contract. "If this document is signed as is, it could lead to serious misunderstandings and financial losses in the millions." Pierce paused momentarily, then said quietly, "I think we're finally seeing the full picture." "Thank you, Naomi. I want you to stay involved in every detail of this event." Naomi left his office with a completely different mindset. She was no longer the forgotten employee, now an essential part of a larger battle where ability wouldn't be dismissed by prejudice. And for the first time, she wasn't alone. That night, in the small apartment she shared with 2 immigrant nurses, Naomi stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her new name badge. Her eyes reflected determination. "This is where the real fight begins," she whispered, "and I'm not backing down." The next morning, the Imperial Crest Hotel buzzed with activity as it welcomed the first delegations for the International Trade Summit. Naomi Carter, dressed in an elegant teal suit and wearing her new staff badge, walked through the grand lobby with a confidence she had never felt before. Curious eyes followed her, some from her former colleagues in housekeeping, who looked on with admiration, others unable to hide their surprise. Naomi quickly immersed herself in her work, taking on the coordinator role for Dutch and Chinese delegations. She translated conversations, adjusted schedules, reminded attendees of cultural etiquette, and handled every issue with astonishing professionalism. Every word she spoke carried weight. In the eyes of international business leaders, she wasn't just a translator, she was a living bridge between cultures. During the lunch break, a Dutch representative approached Naomi, his eyes lit with surprise. "Excuse me, are you the author of the paper on language variation in international commerce published in the Journal of Applied Linguistics?" Naomi paused, then nodded. "Yes, that's me. It's an honor to meet you. That paper helped me tremendously in preparing negotiations with East Asian partners. I even cited it in 2 conferences in Europe." Naomi smiled gratefully. Alexander Pierce observed the exchange from across the room and gave a subtle nod. He knew he had made the right choice in giving this woman a chance. Meanwhile, Thomas Whitmore, the hotel's executive director, who had repeatedly rejected Naomi's transfer requests, looked visibly uncomfortable. He stepped into the temporary office where Naomi was working, trying to maintain his air of authority. "Ms. Carter, I must admit, I'm surprised by your abilities. It seems Monroe misjudged you." Naomi responded calmly. "Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. It's unfortunate that my file, which includes 6 languages, an honors degree from Georgetown, and published research, was ignored by both you and Ms. Monroe for 6 years." Whitmore froze, his forced smile stiffening. Naomi continued, "I don't understand why the hotel spent over $50,000 on a flawed translation when I was still mopping floors just 3 days ago." Whitmore didn't respond. He just smirked and walked away. But Naomi knew the power game wasn't over yet. That afternoon, while reviewing the summit materials, Naomi discovered a young employee with the last name Whitmore secretly replacing the translations she had corrected. She approached her directly. "Excuse me, who are you and why are you editing translations I've already approved?" The girl fumbled nervously, stammering, I'm Ashley Whitmore. My uncle asked me to handle the translations." Naomi glanced at the document in her hand and examined it. The same serious errors had reappeared word for word. Without hesitation, Naomi gathered the materials and headed to the 30th floor, knocking on the door of CEO Alexander Pierce. "Mr. Pierce, I need you to see this." She laid out the evidence that Ashley Whitmore, the executive director's niece, had secretly swapped the translations and presented documentation showing that the translation company founded by Whitmore had received hundreds of thousands of dollars in contracts despite having no professional credentials. Pierce studied the documents carefully, then looked at Naomi. "Can you prove all this? I have video footage copies of emails and confirmation from Peking University that they never issued a certificate to Ashley Whitmore." At that moment, Elena from HR entered the room holding another folder. "I've just completed a 5-year audit of our hiring records. There's a clear pattern of systemic exclusion against non-white employees, especially women." Pierce placed both folders on the desk, his expression colder than ever. He called out to his assistant, "Schedule an emergency meeting with the entire executive board. I want a full list of all outsourced contracts and managerial hires over the past 5 years, and alert the legal department immediately." Naomi returned to her office with a heavy heart. She knew this wasn't the end. What she had uncovered wasn't just individual misconduct. It was an entire system of favoritism, exploitation, and suppression of talent. That night, Naomi opened her laptop and submitted a detailed report to a labor fairness watchdog organization. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was standing up for everyone who had ever been overlooked the way she had. Before bed, Naomi looked at the International Relations Coordinator badge on her bookshelf. She whispered, "Tomorrow the truth will speak, and this time it won't be buried." The next morning, on the second floor of the Imperial Crest Hotel, the atmosphere had shifted. Gone was the usual buzz of billion-dollar deals in the making, replaced by tension so sharp it felt like a wire about to snap. An emergency meeting was called, and the entire executive board, senior managers, legal and finance departments, and representatives from human resources were gathered. But unlike most meetings, today's front row also included special guests, business leaders from the Netherlands and China key partners who had witnessed Naomi's efforts over the past few days. Alexander Pierce stepped onto the stage with a stern expression. Walking beside him was Naomi Carter, no longer the invisible cleaning staff member from 6 years ago, but now a force ready to sweep away the dust that had long clouded the system. Today, I have something to say, plain and direct. Pierce began, his gaze sweeping across the room. We have uncovered a network of favoritism, discrimination, and internal fraud that has gone on for years within the Imperial Crest hotel system. And it was this woman, Naomi Carter, who brought the truth to light. A presentation lit up behind him. Statistics tracking recruitment and promotions over the past 5 years were on the screen. The charts revealed a clear pattern. Highly qualified candidates of color and female applicants were 3 times more likely to be rejected than others. Elena, from Human Resources, took the floor next, presenting concrete evidence that numerous job applications and internal transfer requests had been blocked at the management level, including 12 submitted by Naomi. Then it was Naomi's turn. She stepped forward, composed, and spoke clearly, each word resonating through the hall. I used to mop the floors in this very lobby, and for 6 years I was dismissed, overlooked, and denied every opportunity for advancement. Not because I wasn't capable, but because the color of my skin and my gender made some people uncomfortable. Whispers spread across the room. Some lowered their eyes. Others, especially those in lower-level departments, watched Naomi with eyes full of hope. Pierce continued. We also discovered that Ashley Whitmore, the niece of Thomas Whitmore, owned the translation company hired for this summit. She lacks professional certification, and the documents she translated could have caused millions of dollars in damages. The doors of the conference room swung open. 2 security guards entered, followed by Thomas Whitmore and Ashley, both pale-faced. Thomas, would you like to explain yourself? Pierce asked, his tone calm but commanding. Thomas stammered, I was just trying to give my niece a chance. By swapping out international documents and deliberately sidelining more qualified staff, Pierce cut him off. You're terminated immediately for gross misconduct and causing serious harm to the company's reputation. The first clap came from the corner of the room, where a young front desk employee wiped away a tear. Slowly, the room erupted into thunderous applause. Pierce smiled faintly and turned to Naomi. I hereby appoint Naomi Carter as the Global Director of Multicultural Communications for Imperial Crest Hotels. She hasn't just proven her capabilities, she's reignited hope and trust among those who have long been ignored. Naomi looked around the room, meeting every gaze, housekeepers, and international executives, all applauding with sincere admiration. At that moment, she realized she hadn't just won a fight, she had rewritten the game's rules. That night, from her new office on the 32nd floor, Naomi gazed out at the glittering lights of New York City. She opened her laptop and began drafting a plan for a new initiative, the Invisible Talent Project, a program to identify and uplift skilled workers from within the hotel's ranks. She knew this was only the beginning. And for the first time in years, Naomi whispered to herself, "I'm not knocking on the door anymore. This time, I'm the one holding the key." 6 months had passed since that pivotal meeting at the Imperial Crest Hotel, the day Naomi Carter stood up and exposed an entire system of discrimination and favoritism in hiring. At the time, she had been a former janitor with an honors degree from Georgetown. Now, she is the global director of multicultural communications for the Imperial Crest Hotel Group. Naomi's new office sat on the 32nd floor with a direct view of Central Park. A gold-plated nameplate hung beside her door, clearly stating her title alongside the logo of the Invisible Talent Initiative, a program she had founded and now led. Its mission is to identify and elevate capable employees who have been overlooked simply because of their background, race, or social status. Naomi stood before the senior executive board in the company's main conference room, presenting the program's first phase results. On the LED screen were growth charts and complex numbers. 147 employees from housekeeping, janitorial, and logistics departments had been promoted. 83% of them people of color or from marginalized communities. International customer satisfaction had increased by 35%, outsourced service costs had dropped by 60%, and internal staff satisfaction had reached a record high. Alexander Pierce sat in the front row, nodding with satisfaction. He didn't just see the numbers, he could feel the cultural shift rippling through the entire system. Rising from his seat, he offered a brief but powerful statement. Naomi Carter has achieved something this company never imagined, transforming a once unjust system into a platform for empowerment and rightful recognition. After the meeting, Naomi stepped into the hallway and ran into Elena Brooks, now the Director of Human Resources. Elena beamed. "Naomi, I just got a letter from our Texas branch. They want to launch the Invisible Talent Program next quarter." Naomi smiled, warmth spreading through her chest, but she knew the journey was far from over. That night in her office, Naomi received an email from a newly hired employee at the California branch. The message was short and straightforward. "I'm the first in my family to earn a college degree. I never thought anyone would see me. Thank you for opening the way." Naomi read the words again and again, her eyes misting over. She didn't reply right away. Instead, she opened a drawer and took out her old, worn-out name badge. It read, "Janitorial Staff Naomi Carter." She placed it next to her new one. Both were part of her, past and present. But now, the future was different. In the reflection on the glass window, behind her desk, the lights of New York shimmered. Naomi whispered, "Talent was never invisible. People weren't looking in the right place." The Invisible Talent Program had become a core part of the Imperial Crest Hotel system 3 years later. Naomi Carter was no longer just an implementer. She had become an enabler. She had trained, mentored, and opened doors for hundreds of employees across the country, many of whom had once been overlooked simply because of their humble beginnings. Naomi no longer needed to sit in the highest office to feel seen. She often visited even the smallest hotel branches, speaking directly with laundry workers, environmental service teams, and restaurant staff searching for the next Naomi. Naomi was invited to speak before thousands of employees nationwide at the annual company summit in Chicago. She didn't just talk strategy, she shared her journey. I spent 6 years in silence holding on to the fire inside me that believed I could do more than just keep a door clean. Today, I no longer want to walk through that door. I hold the key to open it for others. At the end of her speech, Naomi mentioned a few names employees from various branches who had recently been promoted. Among them was a Latina woman, a former janitorial supervisor who had just been nominated as director of operations. The entire room rose in applause upon learning that this woman had once quietly taught Naomi how to use cleaning chemicals and equipment during her first day on the job. Naomi stepped off the stage to thunderous applause, her eyes glowing with the unwavering belief that appearance does not define worth, and that talent will always find its way when someone truly sees it. The story of Naomi Carter is a powerful lesson in perseverance, recognition, and the ability to change a system long marred by injustice. I've learned that talent isn't always visible, but always matters, especially when we stand up for truth and lead with heart. I've learned that real change often starts with a single brave action, even something as simple as answering the phone at the right moment. I've learned that justice isn't just about righting past wrongs, but building a system where those wrongs can never happen again. Naomi Carter chose the more challenging road, and hundreds of doors have been opened because she did. And for us, those reading her story, we might be the next ones to open a door for someone else. And what about you? Have you ever felt underestimated because of your background, your skin color, or simply because people refused to see the real value inside you? Share your story in the comments. Maybe your words will empower someone who feels invisible just like Naomi once did. If this journey moved, you click like to support the spirit of never giving up. Don't forget to share this video with someone who might need a ray of hope. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story, because the next one could be yours.